Here we go. Humanities 101 and NACHOS reminds you that you are enough. Now we join Dr. Dutch with the neuro-affirming conversation hour for outreach and support.
Welcome back, Nacho Knots, and welcome to December. There's something about the month of December that always feels like a quiet exhale, a moment when the world tilts towards reflection even as everything around us tries to speed up. The light gets brighter, the days get shorter, and suddenly we find ourselves balancing both the weight and the wonder of the year that we've lived. December arrives with a softness that asks us to notice things we might have rushed past. The shift in our routines, the way our bodies respond to colder mornings, the strange mix of anticipation and fatigue that settles into our bones. It's a month that reminds us that we are not machines. We are human. We are learning, and we're doing the absolute best we can at the end of a long, long season. And so, as we open the first episode of December together, I invite you to slow down with me. Let your shoulders release, let your breath deepen, and let yourself arrive fully, not just to this episode, but to this moment in your own life. You made it to December, and that is no small thing. And as December settles in, the weather has finally decided to catch up with the calendar. Here in Michigan and across much of the Midwest, we woke up this past weekend to a real, undeniable winter. Not the light dusting that melts by noon, but the kind of snow that hushes the world for a moment. Thick, steady, quietly confident snow. The kind that tells you without apology, well, yes, winter is here. There's something about that first true snowfall that rearranges the rhythm of our days. Roads slow down. Mornings start earlier because the scraping of the windshield adds an extra 5 minutes. And the air has a bite to it now, crisp enough to wake us even the sleepiest amongst us. And every step outside becomes a little sensory event. Boots crunching, breath clouding, cold on the tips of your fingers, reminding you that your body feels the season even before your mind catches up. For many of us, shifts like this land a little bit heavier on our nervous system. Weather changes mean routine changes. Layers, traffic, light levels, sensory load, and still there's a strange kind of beauty in watching the familiar world get repainted overnight, in seeing the landscape transformed into something softer and quieter. It's a reminder that even a sudden shift can bring their own kind of calm if we allow ourselves a moment to take it all in. The shift into real winter weather offers more than just a temperature change. It gives us a living metaphor for the heart of NACHOS, the neuro-affirming conversation hour for outreach and support. When snow arrives suddenly, the whole world has to adjust. Roads, routines, expectations, even our posture as we brace against the cold. And that mirrors the lived experience of so many neurodivergent people. Our environments shift, sometimes without warning, and our systems must process, adapt, and stabilize in real time. One of the central NACHOS themes is the recognition that transitions aren't just logistical, they're neurological. A snowfall isn't simply meteorological, it's a sensory event. The brightness of the snow, the glare, the unexpected cold, the extra clothing layers. The way the sound changes when the world gets insulated and quiet. Our bodies pick up on all of that long before our words ever do. In NACHOS, we name that truth. A change in environment is a change in us. The first big snow also reveals something else. the world collectively slows down. Hopefully, people drive more cautiously, walk more deliberately, and plan more carefully. And that slowdown is something neurodivergent folks often need, but rarely feel permitted to take. Winter reminds us that sometimes the world itself models PB&J for us. Predictability in knowing that seasons will turn, balance in adjusting our pace, and joy in the unexpected beauty that arrives unannounced. And just as winter asks us to prepare warmer clothes, earlier mornings, different routines, NACHOS asks us to practice preparation in our inner world. We build tools, rhythms, scaffolds. We learn to anticipate our needs not as weaknesses, but as acts of self-respect. The snow teaches what our community affirms week after week, that adapting isn't a flaw. It's a form of wisdom. The snowfall also reinforces one of the quiet truths of this space, that you're allowed to respond to the world the way your system responds. If the cold energizes you, good. If it drains you, that's valid too. If the sudden change throws off your routines, your sleep patterns, and your executive functioning, that's not a personal failing. It's your nervous system receiving new data. In NACHOS, we don't fight the body's truths, we listen to them. And maybe the biggest connection is this: when the snow falls, we can't muscle through it alone. Communities plow roads. Neighbors help dig out stuck cars. Families regroup and adjust schedules. Winter survival is collective. Let me say that again. Winter survival is collective, and community is at the heart of what we do here at NACHOS. We are not meant to navigate sensory overload, shifting seasons, or shifting life chapters alone. The snow reminds us that belonging is not just comfort, it is infrastructure. This December, as the cold settles in and the snow starts to stick, we're invited to lean into all of the NACHOS themes we've practiced this semester. Pausing, noticing, adjusting, connecting, and choosing care over perfection. Winter has a way of stripping life down to what matters. And what matters here in this community is that you are not alone and that you're worthy of the gentleness that this season asks us to practice. So as the snow blankets Michigan and much of the Midwest, and as we brace for colder mornings and longer nights, I find myself thinking not only of changing weather, but of changing seasons in our inner lives. The external shift from bare earth to white, quiet mirrors something deeper. The way time moves through our minds, through our hearts, and through our personal seasons of growth, rest, reflection, and becoming. And in that spirit, I want to share a poem that speaks to this gentle but unstoppable rhythm of human life, the way our inner seasons often echo the outer ones. So here's The Human Seasons by John Keats. 4 seasons fill the measure of the year. There are 4 seasons in the mind of man. He has his lusty spring, when fancy clear takes in all beauty with an easy span. He has his summer, when luxuriously spring's hone cud of youthful thought he loves to ruminate, and by such dreaming high, in nearest unto heaven quiet coves, his soul has its autumn, when his wings he furleth close, contented so to look on mists and idleness, to let fair things pass by unheeded as a threshold brook. He has his winter too of pale misfeature, or else he would forget his mortal nature. That poem, with its weaving of the year's seasons and the seasons of our inner lives, feels especially resonant today. Something in Keats's language reminds us that our minds and bodies follow their own weather patterns, just as real and just as shifting and just as worthy of our attention as anything happening outside. So when winter arrives on Earth with its quiet, its slower pace, and its invitation to tuck inward, many of us feel that shift inside of ourselves too. There are stretches of life when our energies pull back, when clarity settles into something softer, and when the only thing our nervous systems want is rest and warmth and a place to simply be. And Keats honors that rhythm. He names what so many of us live, that bright newness of a personal spring, the expansive dreaming of our summers, the reflective calm of our autumns, and yes, even the pale, tired, necessary winters of the self. And the heart of the poem is this gentle truth. Every season matters, even the cold ones, even the quiet ones. Even the seasons that don't look productive or impressive on the outside. Winter has purpose. So does autumn. So do the days when your wings are folded instead of outstretched. These quieter chapters are still part of the story of becoming. So as the world outside turns quiet and still, maybe this moment is asking you to notice your own season. Are you in the winter of recovery, gathering strength? An autumn of release and reflection? Or maybe you're carrying a small spring inside of you, new hopes, fresh ideas, tiny sparks that haven't bloomed yet, but are quietly waiting their turn. Wherever you are, hear this with kindness. Your inner season is valid too. It has shape, it has meaning, and it won't last forever, but its imprint will still stay with you long after it's gone. It will teach you something that you may not have learned any other way. And thinking about these seasons of the earth and of the mind and of the spirit sent me down another path this week. I found myself researching and reading about how ancient humans learned to survive the cold, how we got through the winter eons ago. And it struck me how deeply connected our story is to the weather we're walking through right now. There was an article from Sapiens that talked about the earliest humans who stepped into climates far colder than anything their bodies had ever known. And these weren't people with parkas or fleece-lined boots. They were tropical beings suddenly facing ice, wind, and long nights. What kept them alive wasn't brute strength or some hidden layer of fur. What saved them was adaptability, both physical and cultural. Early humans learned to work with fire, to build shelter, to make clothing, and maybe most importantly, they relearned to rely on one another. The cold forced them into community, into cooperation, into thinking creatively about how to survive a world that didn't automatically fit them. Scientists can still see traces of those adaptations in us today. We shiver to generate heat. Our blood vessels tighten near our fingers to protect our core. Some of us carry brown fat that burns energy just to keep us warm. But even with all that biology, we are still not polar bears. We survive winter because of the systems we build. Warm clothes, shared heat, homes with walls, routines that keep us steady. Culture becomes survival. And as I read, I couldn't help but see the connection to everything we talk about here. Nachos is built on the idea that humans adapt best not by forcing themselves to tough it out, but by creating environments that honor their needs. Just like our ancestors, we thrive when we build systems, predictability, balance, joy, systems that help us meet the world as we are, where we are, when we are. We thrive when we gather around shared warmth, shared understanding, and shared care. There's something almost comforting about knowing that adaptation isn't a sign of weakness. It's one of the oldest human strengths we have. When the cold came, humans didn't pretend it wasn't cold. They changed their lives to match their reality. They honored their bodies. They created community. They learned to survive not by pretending the world was different, but by responding honestly to the world as it was. And that's a deeply neuro-affirming message, because many of us live inside winters the world can't see. Many of us build fires in our own way through routines, sensory boundaries, pacing, support networks, and the small acts of care that keep us grounded. We build shelters out of community, out of shared language, out of being understood. And like our ancestors, we are allowed to adapt, we are allowed to change, and we are allowed to seek warmth. So as December opens and the snow settles in, maybe this is another season inviting us to honor our needs the way the ancient humans honored theirs, with creativity, with honesty, and with community all around. And as I sat with that thread of human resilience and adaptability in the face of cold and change, I began to realize we aren't the first generation to face winter's hush with uncertainty and hope. Long before modern heat and insulation, there were people all over the world confronting the dark, short days, the biting cold. So I did what an academic does, and I started to do more research. And I stumbled upon a National Geographic article that explored exactly how ancient cultures learned not just to survive, but to honor winter as a season of transformation. Reading that story feels like brushing hands across a lineage of wisdom. In many ancient societies, whether gathering around a hearth in the north or marking the turning of the sun in distant lands, winter wasn't only a hardship to endure. It was a time to pause, to reflect, and to prepare. A natural rhythm woven into the human experience. They told themselves and each other, this isn't a season to fear, but a season to respect. The darkness, the cold, they come every year for a reason. They ask us to slow down, to take stock, to gather. And as the National Geographic article suggests, the shift to winter can feel jarring when we resist it. But when we lean into it, we find ancient rituals, community warmth, shared meals, festivals, light, and a sense of belonging even on the longest of nights. And that made me realize that's exactly the kind of permission we give ourselves here at NACHOS. We don't ask you to brave the cold alone. We don't demand that you show up like it's spring forever with a smile on your face. We offer something different. A chance to mark the season, to acknowledge the weight, to acknowledge the pull, even its hush, to gather not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, neurodivergently. Because if our ancestors could orient their lives around the light and dark cycles, building fires, aligning stones to the solstice, holding space for communal rest, then we too can orient ourselves around the rhythms that our minds and bodies need. We can build rituals, supports, and small acts of care. We can honor rest, we can connect, and we can hold space for the winter within. So as the night grows longer and the snow gathers outside our windows, maybe this December isn't a season to push through, but a season to receive, a season to tune in, a season to remember that human adaptability isn't only physical, it's cultural, and it's communal. It's rooted in care. So when you think about these ancient cultures of lighting fires, gathering in shared spaces, and honoring long nights instead of resisting them, I found myself wondering how much of winter we feel in our minds and how much we carry in our bodies. Cultures have always made meaning out of darkness and cold, but I became curious about what science has to say about it. What does winter actually do to us? What does the body know that the mind sometimes forgets? And that curiosity led me into a fascinating piece of modern research, carried out by a collaboration of physiologists and human biology researchers from universities and medical institutes in Europe and North America. And these teams studied how the human body responds to cold, not just in a put on a jacket way, but in a level of blood flow, metabolism, and energy use way. They looked at populations from different climates, people exposed to different temperatures, and even controlled laboratory studies where scientists observed how our bodies adapt when things get chilly. And what they found is surprisingly beautiful. Humans aren't built like polar animals, but we do have a remarkable set of tools for coping with cold. Our bodies shift into protective mode, generating heat, tightening those blood vessels in our hands and our feet to protect our core, even activating special types of fat that burns energy, as aforementioned. But here's the part that fascinated me most. Even with those biological systems in place, what truly kept humans alive through these harsh winters wasn't just physiological. It was behavioral, it was cultural, and it was communal. We survived and still survive winter through routines, through shelter, warmth, shared resources, planning, and gathering. To put it plainly, we survive because people came together. And they built systems that honored bodies instead of demanding that they power through discomfort. And that to me lands right here again at the heart of nachos. Winter isn't only a season outside of our windows, it's a season inside of our bodies. The heaviness you might notice, the fatigue, the shift in energy, even the extra pounds, the need for a slower pace, those aren't weaknesses. Those are signals. Those are ancient wisdom coded in your nervous system, reminding you that adaptation is both biological and communal. So as we move deeper into December, this research becomes a gentle invitation. Listen to your body. Honor your internal season. Seek warmth and connection, and let community, our community, be a part of how you adapt. Humans have always survived winter together, and you are not meant to do it alone. And as our thoughts moved from ancient winter rituals and human adaptation to cold, I realized I wanted to include a reminder. Winter doesn't just touch our hearts or our stories, it touches our bodies and our social existence. And that's why I looked into a study called the Human Health and Social Factors in Winter Climate Study. And the authors examined how winter, cold, darkness, and shorter days shapes our social routines and behavior, and our larger community infrastructures. They describe what happens to people when the weather turns. The cold stresses the body, the long nights can weigh on mood and energy, but more importantly, winter forces us to lean into those supports that we mentioned before: shelter, warmth, routine, community care, and more importantly, social connection. For many, surviving winter meant more than wearing a coat. It meant structuring life around the cold, planning for work, rest, commute differently, adjusting diet, activity, and even social rhythms to match the season. What this study reminds us, much like the ancient cultural stories and the physiological research, is that human survival in winter always depends on our bodies and our communities. The internal work of staying warm and healthy, and the external work of building supportive structures and systems. It underscores that what we often think of as just weather is deeply entangled with social systems: heating, shelter, resources, shared care, and empathy. And for us Nacho Knots, that connection carries a powerful message. Winter is not just an external backdrop. It becomes a context that we can change how we move, how we rest, how we relate, how we care for ourselves and others. It means that when we feel drained, overwhelmed, cold, those reactions are not just personal, they're human, and they don't call for shame. They call for community. They call for planning. They call for kindness, and they call for support. So again, as the snow grows outside and the days shorten, I want us to remember, taking care of ourselves in winter is not optional. It's part of being human, and it's part of staying alive. It's part of surviving with dignity. So once more, this season is not a test. It's an invitation to slow down, to build warmth, to lean on community, to design our lives so that our bodies and minds don't just survive, but they rest, they heal, they rejuvenate, and they grow. And all of this, the ancient rituals, the scientific studies, the cultural adaptations, the biological responses, begin to paint a single picture. Winter has always been more than a season. It's a teacher. It's a mirror. It's a force that invites us to reckon with ourselves honestly. Winter it slows down, and it shows the world in that slow way whether we're ready or not, whether we can do it or whether we can't. It strips away the noise. It changes the pace. It demands preparation, patience, and community. And in doing so, it reflects something fundamental about our human experience. We are shaped sometimes by that adversity of the seasons, both outer and inner. We talk a lot here about wintering in the human sense. And when we talk about wintering, we're not talking only about cold air or frozen sidewalks. We're talking about the emotional winters each of us carry inside, the quieter periods, the tired phases, the transitions where growth happens underground and out of sight. Humans have always had these winters. The mind has them, the heart has them, the nervous system has them. Sometimes they arrive slowly, and sometimes they hit overnight like the first big snowstorm. But they come. They always come. And they do their work. And for neurodivergent folks, wintering can feel even more pronounced. The sensory landscape changes. Brighter snow, colder wind, louder heating systems. thicker clothing, itchier clothing, disruptive routines, holiday expectations, crowded stores, and the always crowded and shifting schedule. The world becomes sharper in some places and duller in others. And many neurodivergent bodies feel the shift immediately, deeply, and without apology. Because winter doesn't ask permission, it arrives. And our nervous systems respond. So this is where NACHOS steps in, because NACHOS is at its core a community built around honoring internal seasons. It's a space where we name what's happening inside of us and refuse to judge it. In NACHOS, we understand that wintering, real human wintering, isn't about powering through or pretending nothing has changed. It's about letting your body's truth set the pace. It's about acknowledging that sensory overwhelm is real, that fatigue isn't failure, and that needing more warmth, more rest, and more predictability isn't a flaw. It is wisdom. And here's the truth. Wintering has always been a communal act. Our ancestors survived winter because they gathered. They pooled their resources, shared their heat, told stories, prepared food together, and checked in on one another. Winter demanded connection. And the same is still true today. Not just for physical survival, but for emotional well-being. Neurodivergent wintering is often about finding your people, your supports, and your structure. It's about being honest with yourself and gentle with your limits. In NACHOS, we treat winter as a reminder that our humanity is collective, that our nervous systems are not meant to live in isolation, that we're allowed to ask for help, to lean on others, to give ourselves the structure and the softness our minds need. Winter is a season that says, slow down. No, it demands us. Slow down. Make room. Light a fire. For the love of God, let someone sit next to you. Let the world be quieter for a moment. Let yourself be held. And maybe the most important lesson winter teaches us is about pacing. Nothing in nature blooms year-round. Nothing grows without rest. Nothing stays bright every day. So why do we expect that and sometimes demand that of ourselves? Why do we demand continuous output when every organism around us is modeling cycles of retreat and renewal? Winter says you don't have to be productive to be worthy. You don't have to be dazzling to be valuable. You are allowed to be still, and you're allowed to recover. So as we move through this December, through exams and grading and deadlines, through icy mornings and holiday noise, I want to offer you this thought, this one little thought. Winter is not a punishment. Again, it's a rhythm. It's a teacher, and let it be a companion. Because when we let it be a companion and we allow ourselves to winter, truly winter, we create space for healing, we create space for clarity, and we create space for gentle becoming. And that's the NACHOS way. We honor the season, we honor the body, and we honor each other. And we remember that even in the coldest months, warmth grows in community. It grows in togetherness. And with all that in mind, the outer winter, the inner winter, the wisdom woven through both, I want to bring it back to you. Because NACHOS isn't just about listening. It's about noticing. It's about reflection. And it's about that small spark of awareness that says, oh, That's where I am now. Because before we want to move on, I want to offer you a simple question, a quiet moment of participation and reflection. You don't need to write anything down unless you want to, and you don't have to share unless you choose to, but I'd really love for you to drop this in the chat. What season are you in now? Not the season on the calendar, the season inside of you. Is it winter inside of your mind or your soul? Are you folding your wings for a moment of rest? Are you in an autumn of letting go or sorting what to keep and what to release? Are you carrying a small spring inside of you, something tender and new beginning to grow? Or are you basking in a personal summer full of ideas and warmth and expansion? So wherever you land, there's no right or wrong answer to this. Your season is valid, and your season is welcomed here. And I know, as mine often do, your season can change as gently or as suddenly as it needs to. So take a moment, breathe, and just notice. Noticing is your participation. That awareness is your offering to yourself today. And as we hold space for our own seasons, I also want to gently invite you to help us support the seasons of our community and the various seasons that our community will be moving through in the coming months. Because the Humanities 101 Foundation is already preparing for spring, for April's Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month, a time when our work becomes even more urgent. We're planning programs, events, conversations, and community building gatherings that center autistic voices, highlight neuro-affirming practices, and build the kind of inclusive spaces we deserve. But we cannot do it alone. These programs are powered by generosity, by belief, and by people who care deeply enough about creating a world where neurodivergent folks can not just survive, but thrive. So if NACHOS has been a place of comfort or clarity for you, if our mission resonates with you, and if you believe in building neuro-affirming communities right here in Michigan and across the state and the country, I'm asking you to consider supporting our GoFundMe for April programming. Every donation truly helps us reach one more person, offer one more resource, bring one more moment of connection and empowerment into a world that needs it now more than ever. So if you're able, please follow the campaign, share it, donate if you can, and help us keep this mission alive and growing. But honestly, sharing it with your networks is more than enough. So as we come to the end of this episode, and the end of our semester together for some of you, I want to gather everything we've explored today and place it gently in your hands. We've walked through winter in so many forms. The literal snow outside of our windows, the ancient rituals that held communities together, the science of how our bodies adapt, and the quiet inner seasons that shape our emotional lives. All of it reminds us of one truth. Humans were never meant to face winter alone. Not the one outside, and surely not the one on the inside. Our ancestors survived cold and seasons through cooperation and creativity. Ancient cultures honored winter as a time of reflection and preparation. Modern scientists even trace the ways our bodies respond to cold and seek balance. And here in NACHOS, we carry that lineage into our present moment. We name what's happening within us and around us. We honor the rhythms of our own nervous systems and the world. We reject the idea that worth is measured in productivity. And we build a community where warmth is something that we don't have to earn. It's something that we deserve and that we're worthy of just by being here. So here is your affirmation for this December. You are allowed to winter. You're allowed to slow down. You're allowed to rest without apologizing. You're allowed to honor what your body and your mind are telling you. And you're allowed to shift your pace. You are allowed to seek warmth, connection, and care. And you are allowed fully and completely to be exactly where you are in your season. And know this, whatever season you are in, you are not walking through it alone. You carry the strength of your ancestors who adapted creatively. And you carry the wisdom of communities who honored the dark months as sacred. You carry the biological resilience of a body designed to respond to its environment. And you carry the support of this NACHOS community, a place guided by predictability, balance, and joy. A place committed to neuro-affirming understanding. A place where your season is honored, not questioned. So as we step into the rest of December, keep these truths close. Let yourself be held by them. Let yourself be warmed by them. And when the world feels cold, remember, winter is not a verdict. It's a rhythm. It's a teacher. It's a season in your story. And you are allowed to move through it with gentleness, patience, and grace. You matter. Your story matters. Your season matters. And honestly, I am so grateful to walk this path with you. And with that, Nacho Knots, we bring this December episode and this semester to a close. I want to thank you for walking through these reflections with me, for showing up for yourselves, and for letting this space be part of your week. As always, I'm honored to sit with you in curiosity, compassion, and community. Remember to carry your PB&J mentality with you. A little more predictability where you can find it, a little balance where you can build it, and moments of joy wherever you can sneak them in. Let the season be gentle. Let yourself move slowly. Let yourself winter without apology. And remember, this is the Neuro-Affirming Conversation Hour for Outreach and Support. And I'm Dr. Dutch Hazlett, reminding you that your stories matter, your needs are real, and your nervous system deserves kindness. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Rest when you need it. Seek warmth where you can find it. Honor your season and know deep down that even in the coldest months, you are not alone. And wherever your season takes you next, know that you have a community of Nacho Knots behind you, and you are always welcome back at our table. So until next time, may your winter be soft, steady, and always yours.